everywhere we turn anymore, there's always someone in the media or someone out in the wild saying that physical media is over and that we should just accept that we have to stream things, that we have to download games off the internet via Steam or GOG, or we have to stream music instead of buying CDs and stuff like that. And I hate it. I hate the fact that we're being encouraged to not own our media anymore. You stop and think about this for a moment. There's a lot of media right now that's being lost to the sands of time because they're just removing it from streaming services wholesale. You see Disney Plus removing a bunch of their shows, and, well, where are we going to watch them now? You see HBO Max removing a bunch of their stuff. Again, where are we going to watch that now? Unless someone just had the foresight to preserve it ahead of time. And meanwhile, there are video games out there, licensed and otherwise, that are just lost to the sands of time. They become abandonware, essentially, and it gets harder and harder to play them. A good example of that would be all the Activision Marvel games between X-Men and Spider-Man and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. You can't play those anymore unless you go and you find copies at a retro video game store. But here's the thing, with physical media being steadily discouraged, what does that mean for the future of your retro video game store? They're not going to be able to sell those used copies anymore, and that drives a significant source of their income. It might be fashionable to some people to get rid of all their old consoles and get rid of all their old games and go completely digital and stuff like that to save space. Blah de blah de blah, but not me. No, no, no. I want to own my games. I want to have copies of my games. I want to hold the media in my hands, and that's why I still go to the store. I still go and buy my video games on a disc or on a cartridge, however they serve it up. And with all the talk of consoles going digital only eventually, I'm just at a point where I'm saying to myself, well, if they go digital only, I'm done. I'm not buying any more consoles, because at the point they go digital only, what is really the point anymore? I would rather just save my money and build a PC then, because if you're just going to have to download stuff anyway, then why would you want to do otherwise? By the way, PC users have really been getting a raw deal for the longest time now, because, you know, they don't get physical copies of anything anymore. I pretty recently had someone tell me, well, PC users don't get physical copies anyway. To which I said, yeah, and it's lousy. It shouldn't be that way. There should be physical copies. A game like Baldur's Gate 3, it's 150 gigabyte download. 150 gigabytes. It's huge. It's enormous. That should be on discs. That should be on several discs. And the fact that they've released it for PlayStation 5 and still haven't put out a disc, a hard copy of it, is inexcusable. It should be on a disc, and the talk that they have around that game being Game of the Year for 2023, no, 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 no. If a game doesn't have a hard copy, if it doesn't have a physical release, it doesn't deserve Game of the Year. It should go right to Zelda Tears of the Kingdom because it has a physical release. If a game has a physical release, it is automatically superior to one that doesn't. The only concession I will make about digital games is that sometimes you have to buy it digitally because the company is just so small that they can't afford to do a physical release. In which case, fine, I guess I can accept that. I don't have to like it necessarily, but I will accept it because sometimes that's the only way to play things. A good example of that is the Mortuary Assistant recently. They had a PC release and a release on the Nintendo Switch, and the only way to play that one is digitally. So your options are limited if you want to play that game, so there's really no choice. But also, it's not 150 gigabytes. It's much, much smaller in scope and scale than something like Baldur's Gate 3, which is enormous. 150 gigabytes, that blows my mind. A number of people I've talked to are acting so casual about downloading Baldur's Gate 3 and it being no big deal. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, have you ever heard of a data limit? A great number of people only have so many gigabytes to work with in a given month, man. And it's been that way for years now, ever since net neutrality stopped being a thing. So in my mind, it's just common courtesy. It's the right thing to do, putting it on a hard physical copy. Because the moment you make a video game that huge and require it to be downloaded, you're pretty much cutting yourself off from a large number of people who just can't really afford to download that huge of a file with the limited amount of data that they have available to them in this day and age. I'll also say this, that if we have net neutrality again someday, whenever that's going to be, and then we don't have imaginary data caps anymore, then it's going to be a lot easier to deal with digital copies of things. But the fact still remains that hard copies help preserve media. We need physical releases of movies, of music, of video games. We need them to exist. I'm of the opinion that media preservation is so important that when a movie or a piece of music or a video game goes out of print, becomes delisted, or whatever issue arises, a physical copy should immediately be available to libraries, and a digital copy as well, so that people can still use that media, people can still experience that media. Not only do I think that libraries should automatically get a copy of media that's no longer available for purchase, I think that media that just isn't available, that is abandonware, should be public domain. Because whoever's handling the IP, if they can't be bothered to work out any of the legal nonsense ahead of time, then it's more important that we're able to preserve that media than them hold on to whatever license they may have. If you support what I do, please click subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a single video of mine when it comes out. And if you're enjoying this video about physical media, please give this a like, because it really helps me out, and these are tough to put together, guys. When I sit down and look at my collection of DVDs, or my collection of video games, or even my collection of music, I feel a sense of pride about what I have accumulated, knowing that I have this media at the touch of my fingertips. I can play it anytime I want. I don't have to worry about downloading it. I don't have to worry about going to a website. I don't have to worry about firing up an app. I can just boot up my DVD player. I can boot up my console. I can turn on my CD player and listen or play or whatever the case. And it feels like I'm not just being asked to let go of that experience. It feels like I'm being strong-armed into it. There's a sense of anti-consumer contempt about the whole thing, where a lot of people will look down at you for still owning all this old media that seems so out of date. Or they'll think, well, I go on this app to play this or watch this, why don't you? Why don't you stream everything? Why don't you just download it on your computer, download it on your console and play that? Or why don't you go to this website and listen to music that way? And my attitude is, why would I if I already have the means at my disposal? Is it because I'm expected to watch everything in absolute high definition? Because if that's the benchmark, then why is that even a benchmark? Is everyone just so concerned about crisp visuals and graphics and sound that they're losing sight of the experience itself? I think so. It feels like we're putting all that above just experiencing what this media has to offer, all the media out there that's become lost over these years. A good example of this is Shadow of the Colossus. Sure, I could play a remastered version. Sure, I could play a remake of the video game, but why would I necessarily if I already have the PS2 original and I enjoy it, unless I just really want to? A bunch of people will ask me, well, there's a remaster of it out, why don't you play that? And I say, well, I want to play the PS2 original. Is there something wrong with that? And then they look at you like you're a little crazy for wanting to play that PS2 original, for wanting to play the game as it was originally intended when it was made. I think one of the biggest problems with consuming media right now is that we're more concerned with superficial features than the actual substance of consuming media. Where we watch it, we play it, we listen to it, we enjoy it, we discuss it, we analyze it, but instead we're more concerned about, hey, pretty graphics, or hey, look at that nice picture. It feels like it's all about mass consumption instead of quality of consumption. Projects that many people spent many hours on should not just be disappearing into the ether because we're at the mercy of streaming services or downloads or whatever the case. It's even gotten to the point where a store like Best Buy, a place that you, me, and a lot of other people have been to at one point in time to get physical media, to get DVDs, CDs, video games, etc., have said that they're going to stop selling media by sometime in 2024. And Sony says that most of the game sales they get on the PlayStation 5 are digital. And if that doesn't alarm you, then it should. Things like that not only threaten the future of media preservation, they threaten the existence of used shops, used video game shops, used movie shops, used book shops, used music shops, places like that that are so essential to distributing these materials long after they're released to people who want them. Their existence are kind of in jeopardy right now because of this. And it does beg the question now of whether these shops are living on borrowed time if physical media is not really going to be a thing anymore. Gone will be the days when you could just bring a video game over to somebody's house and play it there with them for however long you guys want to hang out. You can't exactly trade digital copies of video games with people. Once it's yours, it's just yours. Maybe you could if it were burnt to a disc, but then again, burning discs is something that is not really in vogue anymore, and more importantly, the consoles and computers that we're seeing don't really have disc players anymore because everything's digital. Conceivably, maybe you could do it if it's digital rights management free, but seems like way more of a hassle than it really should be to enjoy video games and movies and media with people. So in my mind right now, at a time when people are trying to tell us that physical media is dead or dying, it has never been more important to buy as much physical media as we can. We need to get physical media every chance we get. We need to go get those cartridges. We need to go get those DVDs. We need to go get those CDs. If they're available, we need to get them because we absolutely have to show all these executives and all these bigwigs that physical media is still important. Physical media is still absolutely a necessity, and it shouldn't be going anywhere. Because if physical media just goes away, then the future looks really, really bleak. Well, guys, what do you think of all this? Is physical media something that is important to you? Do you really not feel that strongly about physical media? Or are you somewhere in between where you do a lot of digital, but you also do a lot of physical media yourself? I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments because I would love to hear from you.